Okay, so hit me with that next slide, please. So we've seen this before, yes? Right? But what I want to do for you on this moment I have, I want to break it down just a little bit more. Because we know that the reality is, as we mentioned, that we all start off in different spaces and places. And even in this moment, I want you to connect with your own journey, right? Your own experiences, and recognizing where you started off and what your barriers were, just in life in general. And so we know that in reality, the proportions that we see up here when it comes to being able to provide equality, we're gonna move down the line, that realistically, there's some people who have 10, 20 boxes they're standing on, right? And some can't even see above the grass. That's reality. Where must I go? It left me. I'm gonna go over here. So equality is, and we have to be careful about this, everybody can't get the same thing. And some people may say, why can't everybody have? But we have to think about the reality, is that they already have. So are we just contributing more to what someone already has, and then we are oppressing the one that doesn't have much? So we have to transition that equality into equity. And with that equity mindset, we have to say, where are folks starting off at? Where are the disadvantages? And then what does it look like? What do each of those boxes look like for the individual? Because sometimes we even separate into different groupings, but you even have to get into the individual within that grouping that may have different disparities, that are just above just them being identified in a specific group. Ashe? So we have to know what that is in order to provide that equity. But if we want to take it further to liberation, y'all can't see it, but we need to break down the whole fence. Somebody bring in a truck, please. We need to take the whole fence in, right? Because the goal is not just equity, it is beyond equity, right? In order for us to get to liberation. And then even beyond the liberation is, how do I not just look at the folks that are playing in the game, but I'm suited up too. I'm a part of it too. My man up here said, the sense of belonging. And I think everybody in this space knows what it feels like in some capacity to not belong. Whether it's because you relocated to a new space or place, it could be a new career opportunity, it could be new friendships you're trying to make, etc. And it takes time to try to feel like, I fit here. And that reason why you feel like you fit there is because somebody took it upon themselves to make that human connection. So now I feel like I'm not just watching what other people are doing. I'm in the game, right? Let me see if they got me back, I'm ready. All right, next slide. So, I'm gonna sprinkle a little emoji in here because that's what we do. Where are my emoji peeps in the house? Where are my emoji family? Come on now. I see you. So in Umoja, we have 18 practices. I'm not here to give them all to you. If you want that, you gotta come to our SLI. We'll talk about that. But I'm gonna just sprinkle a little bit of the practices because I feel like you need to get them in your soul and I want you to leave talking about it. So one of the practices that I want to uplift and talk about a little bit is, we talk about being intentional and deliberate. Are you here for the work because it's a job? Somebody said that and I said, oh, you read my slides. But are you here because you feel like it's a part of your purpose and your calling? When you wake up in the morning and you come to this campus, is it a part of your lifestyle and your norm? Or am I just here? And what has happened that has created a disconnect for me where I don't feel here? I don't feel purposeful. I don't feel intentional, right? And so you have to ask the question to yourself, why am I doing what I do? Come on now. Why? In Umoja, we deeply value intentional and deliberate behavior, actions, language, purposefulness. We should know why we are doing what we do because nothing is random. Nothing you should be doing in your role here should be random. Everything is connected to an overall vision for a bigger accomplishment. Ashe? Ashe? Hit me with the next one. So, how do we do that? Step one, we talked about accountability. But we have to do accountability through an ethic of love. We have to be in a space where we can have conversation and there's still a level of love there. The attack is not on you. The attack is reframing what you have learned to be aware of what is happening, right? It's that cognitive dissonance that we need to be mindful of. So we do that with the ethic of love. And we talk about, I'm losing my side. No, you're good, you're good. So I'm gonna give you a little sprinkle of bell hooks. So bell hooks says, for me, forgiveness and compassion are always linked. How do we hold people accountable for their wrongdoing and yet at the same time remain in touch with their humanity? Enough to believe in their capacity to be transformed. What are your experiences in your life that you bring to the table? How do you see and empathize? Don't sympathize with me. Empathize with my narrative and my experiences so that together we can grow. Dr. King said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Come on, y'all, if you know it. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Y'all know it. Only love can do that. Right? And so in that accountability, we have to be able to use that ethic of love for one another. My question is, so I was kicking back. I told some people I was being nosy because I wanted to hear your conversation. But mostly I was observing. I was watching. And I was curious to know how many people in this space haven't really had deep conversation or connection with the people in this space. Because when we come in to spaces, we connect with people we know, right? Folks we work with, we kiki, we talking, right, all the time. But there are spaces that we come in and you may say, hey, never talk to such and such. That's over in that department, or that's over in that area. And so if we don't have those connections because we don't know each other, because we always connect in our own silos, then how do we make the links for the overall vision? Can it be a challenge or your intention to start connecting? Because for some people, they may feel like when it comes to equity, well, I don't really work with the students on a regular basis. I don't interact with them like that. So then how, in the work that I do, can I be more equitable? Do you have an understanding of what's happening in the different areas of the campus? I challenge you between now and the next time you convene as a whole in 2024, that's not the story, right? That you have taken it upon yourself to make the connections so we can get the full picture of what is happening. We back, oh, come on now, won't you do it? Next slide. So, what is an ethic of love through the vernacular of Umoja Community? The effective domain. So when practitioners move with the ethic of love, y'all not ready. It's deep. And if it ain't deep to you, then I need you to marinate on it. Lounge in your tub with your bubbles. I'm a tub person. I fall asleep in the tub. Don't judge me, okay? I be relaxing. And I need you to marinate on this. When we move with an ethic of love, we touch the student's spirit. Why do you think it is that certain students in programming on campus connect with the people that are serving them? Because Salu Bona means I see you. I'm not just here to do my job, I see you. That means I'm gonna take the time. That means I'm gonna say hello, come on now. I'm gonna speak to you. I'm gonna acknowledge you. I'm gonna hear what you are saying, right? And in that love, even when we're tired, right? we have to still see them. We still have to connect with them, right? Because if that was your family or your child, would you act the same way? You take the time, right? And so as a village, we have to be able to connect with that same mentality. Hit me with the next one. So, the RP group, if you're not familiar, is a research study group. And what they did is they did a study on success factors. And they called it Success Redefined. And so what they did was they connected with practitioners and they asked the questions of, what is it that students truly need? And so they did an assessment and came up with these 6 factors that you see on the screen. And so one of those factors is knowing that students need to be directed, right? And so students have a goal and know how to achieve that goal, right? The guidance in between that. The other factor is that we are focused, that the student is focused. So staying on track, keeping their eyes on the prize. Because we know that if we look at the experiences of students, if you do not look at it in a holistic lens, you are losing from the game. Because we know that through a holistic lens is that when our students are not being quote unquote focused, let's find out why. Let's ask the questions so that we can provide the right guidance and coaching to keep them focused. Ashe? That they're nurtured. Students feel somebody wants to help them succeed, right? When you are someone who maybe have been out of school for 10, 15, 20 years, and you make it up in your mind that I want to go back to school, whether it's to enhance my education or finish it, I'm hoping that when I come on a campus, somebody gonna help me, right? Somebody gonna help me. And I will promise you, if that student comes on that campus and they do not feel sawubona, they will leave. It takes another level of perseverance within themselves to be like, that's all right, I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna figure it out. Right? Because if not, they'll leave. I remember one time when I was working at a campus, and I was always the one like, I'll tell you, where do you wanna go? I got you. You need to go? Let's walk over there, right? I wanna make sure that they're okay. Because I imagine that in my experiences, when I was within higher education, I did not always know where or who to go. And so I wanted to have somebody to be that resource for me, so I provided that light, right? And so I remember a student came up in the area, and it wasn't my job. But I said, what you need? What's going on? And so they start talking to me, we be chopping it up, right? You gotta make that connection. And so we start talking, and the student was like, oh my gosh, let me just tell you something really quickly. I was so nervous the night before to come on this campus because you don't know the barriers that it took for me to get here, to even come here and ask for help. And they were like, I prayed that it would just be okay, and here you are. And I said, come on now. I said, come on, you came to the right spot. First of all, I acknowledge the student for showing up. I acknowledge the student for being brave enough to. And I acknowledge to the student that you're going to be all right. And no matter if it was my job or not, I said, here is my card, my email, what you call me. I may not get to you right away because, but I'm going to make sure I reach out. And if I don't know the answers, I'm going to find somebody who does. And if you are one of those practitioners where you can pick up the phone and you got a list of people that you can call, you like, my financial aid crew, where you at? I heard you earlier, y'all gave me energy and light back there. They know who to call. And so if I have a student, they have a concern, I say, well, hold on real quick. Boop, boop, boop. What's up, John? Oh yeah, I got the student over there on their way. They need some help. Send them my way. And I hang up, John's waiting for you. Go ahead and go over there. And I'm gonna call too and say, John, did such and such come over there? Yeah, they right here. Right? The follow through, the accountability. It is not in my job description to do that. But it's my job description to make sure that I serve students, period. Right? So we need to make sure that our students are nurtured. I'll go back one more time. Nurtured, that they're engaged, that they feel connected, and that they feel valued. The key in that, right, the fence that we're trying to break down is, what does that look like? Because those are great definitions. But what does that look like with the climate on our campus? Do we know what that looks like and how to be able to navigate it, right? Okay, I'm ready for the next one now. You see these beautiful scholars? These are Umoja students. And what came up for me when I was thinking about, I had a lot of things I wanted to talk to you about, but I know they only gave me 15 minutes, right? Y'all gonna bring us back? But what I was thinking is, how do we get equity past a slogan? It's not a campaign, right? We are talking about real experiences for students that have experienced hardships and trauma. They come to your campus already sometimes with those hardships and trauma. And we don't need to perpetuate those hardships and trauma when they're in the classroom, when they're in your offices, when they come to see you, when they need help. So ask yourself on this campus, is equity a slogan or is it a way of life? Come on now, y'all gotta cool me down because I'm about to go off.
Go ahead, come on.
Is it a way of life? Because how do we get our scholars from struggle to triumph? Every student you see on here, I know their story. Every student you see on here, I have contact. I'll call them right now. I know where they're at. I know what they're doing. I know how to help them if they need my help. Because it's that human connection that surpassed it is not my, I don't even work there anymore. But it's not my response, but I have made it my responsibility because at the end of the day, it is beyond the institution. It is success for our future generations. How do we do that? Is equity a norm in your household? Do you talk to your family about equitable practices? Do you practice equity on a regular basis, or do you talk about it when you come to this meeting and that's it? It has to be a part of your life, or else then we're not doing it for the right purposes. We're doing it because they told us to be here. Come on, y'all, pull me down. We're doing it because you told us to be here. And in order for us to get to the true overall vision, to make sure that the statement that we have is not like Dominique said, well written, it's facts.
Right.
So anybody can come on our campus, talk to our students, talk to our practitioners, and that those words bleed truth. How do you get there? It's the relationships. You have to understand, you have to know. When we talk about practices in the Umoja community, when we do training globally, we don't just tell them do these practices when you work for Umoja. We say, do you show an ethic of love in your household? Do you show ethic of love to your partner, to your spouse, to your children, to your neighbors, to your community? Because if you don't, then how are you just going to turn it on and do that for work? Ashe?
Ashe.
I'm going to cool down once I put the mic down. Next slide. So I want to show you something really quickly. So in our organization, we do a lot of scholarly writing and research, and we wanted to make sure that we knew and documented the experiences of our students within Umoja. And we asked several questions to students that we had selected that were open to be a part of a project, some of their experiences. And what we did is we asked them to pair those experiences to a visual narrative. And for one of our students in California, from Monterey Peninsula Community College, this is the picture that evoked for them. And this photo spoke to their internal challenges, right? You may have a student who comes upon you or walks past you, and you don't know that this is how they see their current circumstances. Do you ask? Next slide, please. So this particular student, her name is Deja Robinson. This is what she said to help to articulate why she chose the photo that she did and what was the context behind it when we think about the 6 factors of success of what does she need. Because remember, her needs connect to barriers, connect to outcomes, connect to persistence. How do we get there? We don't know what Deja Robinson needs. You notice I didn't say what black students need. I want to also know what black students need, plus Deja Robinson specifically, too. Because Deja Robinson is not just a student, she's a mom. She also takes care of her grandparents. She's a caretaker. So she has all these other things going on in her life in addition to trying to complete her education. And so some of the questions that we asked her was around her experiences during the pandemic, which we know that in California and beyond, that there is a decrease in enrollment, yes? But why? What's happening for our students? How do we take that deeper look, right? And so what Deja said was that her emotional state over the last 2 years, she could not even recognize it for herself. Because of all the things that she was dealing with holistically, in her mind, in her spirit, etc. Do we know that when we can't focus on something in our lives, that we can't focus on nothing? Even in your personal life, you're like, girl, I want to be here with you present and have this glass of wine, but girl, I can't. I got this stuff on my mind. My child ain't acting right. They ain't called me, ain't come home. What's going on, right? And so, go back with me real quick. And so, what Deja said was, she talked about missing the connection, the social engagement, the things that contribute to persistence, yes? Mm-hmm. And so she talked about that and being with friends and having opportunities. But in her reflection preceding that, of what was it that helped her to navigate through that experience, she was referencing that she took a little bit more time to look in the mirror now. She realized that she was becoming a new person, that she was evolving. And she started to reflect on the people who saw her, the people who extended their hand in support, the people who helped to affirm who she was and why she was valuable, and that her goals were necessary, and that they were willing to do whatever it takes to help her to achieve her dreams. So she says they were manifesting through me, and the reason she couldn't recognize herself was because she was looking at somebody that was an old person. That's how we disaggregate data. She's not a number. She has a story, an experience, and in order to help her, we have to truly understand what her life looks like. And then with that, how do we help her to get to her goals? Hit me with the next slide. So, step 2. How do we continue to move forward? Dr. Bell Hooks says, you have to arrest your ego to learn beyond yourself. It's in the act of having to do things that you don't want to do, that you learn something about moving past self and past ego. I asked you a little bit earlier, I said, why do you do this work? Why? Because we are dealing with the lives of our students. We are dealing with the fact that we can have a strong impact on how they see themselves. We can have a strong impact on their ability to thrive. And so what I want to point out to you all is critical reflection is necessary in order for us to decolonize our mindset. It starts with you. You have to do the work, right? Hit me with the next slide. So I recognize that in addition to when we look at equity, we have to also consider the equitable practice for the people who are serving the students. Do you feel seen? Do you feel heard? Right? Because in this space, what I have behind me is a choir. Shout out to all my people who are in the choir that can sing. Come on now. Sometimes you hear it. We're speaking to the choir. We're preaching to the choir. They know the story, right? But the people who are missing in the pews from church, them the ones we need. It's everybody's business. It's everyone that needs to be a part. It's everyone that needs to be connected, right? So how do we also take time to care for the practitioner, the faculty, the administrator, the staff? Everybody is involved, right? Because my experience of connecting with students also, when we bring it back, is that it starts when they meet me, even if I'm not in the final destination that they're looking to go to. It starts with me, that we're all connected. All right, next one. So what I wanted to do to make the connection is that racial battle fatigue is real. If you have the same people, okay, I'm about to get fired up, but I know they gave me my time cue, so I'm about to close it. If you have the same people on the same committees, doing the same work, being asked to do the same thing, and they're the only ones holding up the work, you will lose them.
Yes.
They cannot be the only ones doing the work for the entire institution. Because you will lose quality people that actually want to see advocacy and change happen. We know they come into church. We know they come into the meeting. But what about the people who are not? So I challenge you all, what is your climate on your campus? How are you going to make actionable steps to connect with the people who are not showing up, to help in the overall mission and vision of your institution? When we look at racial battle fatigue, it's described as the physical and psychological toll taken due to constant and unceasing discrimination, microaggressions, and stereotype threat. This literature notes that individuals who work in environments with chronic exposure to discrimination and microaggressions are more likely to suffer from forms of generalized anxiety that manifests both physically and emotionally. If we lose the people to reach the students, then what do? So we have to look at accountability. We've talked about that. We need to do a holistic analysis. That means not just look at one area. We got to look at the whole picture. What is happening with the issues and experiences of our practitioners? Where are the voices of the students? We need all of that to make an overall analysis of how do we move change forward. We also have to deconstruct hegemonic practices. So how are we utilizing spaces to incorporate the different identities and cultures of our students and our community that is on this campus? How do you structure your content in your course? What type of literature do you use? What kind of language do you use in your classroom? How do you uplift the community that exists here? And we have to make space for student narratives. If you have a mission for your campus and there was no student input, I'm gonna just pause. We cannot always speak for the students that we need to hear their voices. They need to have a seat at the table because we're looking for ways to help them. Well, how do we know how to help them if we don't know what's going on? Right? So we have to make spaces for students to be at the table to be able to share their narratives as well. Next slide. So ultimately, what we are wanting to do in my final, to uplift our Umoja practices, we have to encircle identity, right? So encircling diversity is one of the Umoja practices, and it affirms my I am as we stand in a place where we feel embraced, connected, empowered, and rebuke all forms of cultural domination of any kind. When we encircle diversity, we acknowledge and appreciate our oneness, and that diversity becomes a resource.